let's start with our other kind of sort of negative category of the year. That's disappointment of the year. And this is, I tell you, we starting off with a murderer's row, reading off our previous winners in the category. 2016, No Man's Sky. 2017, Middle-earth Shadow of War. In 2018, We Happy Few. In 2019, Rage 2 was a game I completely forgot about until just now.
Every year when I open this list. Oh yeah.
2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake. 2021, 12 Minutes. Blow your beans up your sister. 2022, God of War Ragnarok. The order.
Can we just hang on a second? Are we seriously putting God of War Ragnarok? No, just kidding.
The nominees for this year: AEW Fight Forever, Atomic Heart, GoldenEye 007, Gunbrella, The Last Case of Benedict Fox, Redfall, Sonic Superstars, Sports Story, Starfield, Final Fantasy 16. And we have the Wheel of Fate here beside us, which will dictate who goes first, and we will proceed in a clockwise manner for every round.
We literally did this all like in person this year just to make sure that the wheel is a shoot wheel and it's not a work.
Dave is not working the wheel.
The bullshit and the politics behind that wheel.
This is gonna. A lot of you aren't gonna have excuses anymore that I'm trying to fuck you out of decisions.
And I'm watching Dave, so there's no VAR.
Yeah. This is like the FIFA draw. You're standing beside me as I draw the balls out of the pot.
I should have spent like 200 quid on another GoPro so we could have one just on
I actually thought about getting a large, elaborate wheel.
Yeah.
To have in place.
Oh, wouldn't you know it?
Dave.
Oh my God. Is he fucking working
This
the wheel
is like
again?
when Steve Austin was somehow number 1 in the 99 Rumble.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm starting off, and I am going to go with GoldenEye because it's not a 2023 game, and I don't know how that slipped through.
Wait.
I mean, if that was the case,
you put this list together.
I didn't vote for it, so you're going to have to choose.
There's plenty of things you disqualified.
We have a group chat literally to talk about this,
and all of you are in that group chat as well. So it's not unilateral.
I think it should count.
Why?
Because it's a disappointment of the year.
What does the category say for nominating
I know,
it?
but we have this argument every year.
Yes, and I'm right every year.
You let it get through. If you want to cut it because you
want to chastise you in public.
No. If you want it to get through, if you want to cut it because you don't think it's as disappointing as it is, you can't let it on the list up to record time and then disqualify it.
I genuinely didn't realise it was still on the list.
Well, too effing bad, Dave. It made the list, and let me tell you, this may be the winner. So,
all right, Barry, I was with you to a point. I don't think it's winning this.
But it's not cutting first.
I don't think it's even close.
Sorry, we're talking about disappointing ports of one of the most seminal games of all time. This is literally the first pick of the first category.
There's a couple of factors involved when it comes to GoldenEye.
It's a port.
Well, yeah, there's that. But there's a couple of things involved. So first of all, if you play the Xbox version, it's not as bad. It still has a couple of issues here and there with like some of the kind of weird visual artifacts and clips and whatnot. But as a game to play, it is totally perfectly playable on the Xbox. But obviously the biggest issue is like, why would you blow those textures up to 4K?
Yes.
That's a terrible idea. But it's a playable game. If you play it on the Switch, I never played it on the Switch because I didn't want to play one of the 16 versions of a control scheme that don't work.
Yeah.
But I think also part of it about what makes it so disappointing is, and I remember talking about this at the time, days before that version came out, I went and I played the unreleased 2010 Xbox Live Arcade version. And that version, if that was the thing that came out, that would be up for like 2023. Like
one of the best remastered remakes. Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, like the biggest disappointment is like knowing that thing still exists out there somewhere and is not the release thing. I mean, you have to keep in mind as well, the fact that this thing came out at all is kind of a miracle because of like, the ongoing nature of like the Bond property and Rare and Microsoft and Nintendo. The fact we got this thing in any capacity is a fucking miracle in itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it would have been nice if like there were certain things about it that were better than they are. I don't think it's like the most disappointing compared to some of the things on this list. It's not the most disappointing thing.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it to come off first, but not for the reasons that Dave thinks.
I would cut like 6 or 7 things before I got this.
There's other things I would probably cut before.
But would you cut 9 things before you cut it? Like, is there any point?
Let me also just say why I think this should stand up a bit more.
Again, this is the first pick.
I know, my God. You really came out swinging
Pace
there.
yourself.
But I mean, the other thing as well is that the disparities between the different versions, because on the Xbox family of consoles, the family of consoles that fucking revolutionized fucking online play in this era, you can't fucking play multiplayer with your pals over the internet. Everyone who's excited about this game is 32 years of age, okay? No, they're not getting the lads together around the house to order pizza and drink some Fanta and play this, couch co-op, which is what you have to do on the Xbox version. That's insane. That's an insane omission after waiting this long. Because that's the thing, like...
I think a lot of this is about your ongoing feud with Nintendo Switch Online. And
but at least, but the thing about the Switch Online is that at least they have, that version of the game at least has the multiplayer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but good luck figuring out how to play it with the control scheme.
So again, this is like
it's the least intuitive shooter in terms of a control scheme I've ever played.
It's super both releases are super disappointing for their own unique set of reasons. And again, this is the licensing hell that locked it in, because I nominated it in most disappointing and also best game of not 2020 because I do respect that they got it done, right? They got the fucking thing out. One of the greatest games of all time should be playable on modern systems, so I respect that. But with all that said, I think the bar and the respect for this is way too high to finally get over all these issues, and then it's two uniquely bad ports. I will admit, it's cool playing it with modern controls on Xbox. It's genuinely actually really cool and interesting. But though, like, not only the textures in the world, but the text and stuff on the screen looks hideous. It's so badly blown up. And the audio is badly mixed and just,
there are quality of life. Like when I was streaming it, one thing that I forgot about and was glaringly obvious, which actually was a thing that they included in the unreleased remake, is like, so in the second level, when you have to go and you have to find one of like the security cards that gets dropped by a scientist and it's on the floor somewhere, well, you can't see shit that's on the floor.
Yeah.
So like what they do in the unreleased remake is that thing has...
Remember when looking up and down wasn't the consideration in games?
But like they put like a white outline around it and you can see it, even like if it's silhouetted behind an object, you can still see it. So you know, right, all right, I'm going in the right direction. I think I spent about somewhere between 12 to 15 minutes trying to find that fucking card because they didn't include like a quality of life feature to make that thing, even to add like a magnetic pull that if you're within some sort of fucking range of the thing, that it will just like automatically collect.
A rumble or
anything.
Yeah. So there are
use some of that HD like rumble on the Switch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every game should have Hitman vision. We all know this to be true.
I will come back to the question. Firstly, is it winning? And secondly, if we're really going to keep it on only to eliminate it later.
I don't think it's winning.
I don't think it's winning.
I think it could win. I think it could win.
It depends. Does Jack think it can win?
I don't think it wins just because of some of the other things on here. But then that's because of my own feelings towards
cutting it before a Sonic game. Were you Mark's excited for the Sonic game? Come on.
Look, most disappointing, there are different caveats of what makes a game disappointing.
Yes, absolutely. Right? And I think one of the main caveats is level of excitement pre-release.
Yeah,
sure.
But
I'm not saying every game has to be judged on that for this.
Of course, yeah.
You know?
Now, what I will say to Barry's point is that is a consistent rubric we've used to measure this.
Yeah, of course.
It's like the amount of times I feel I've said since 2015. Did we actually think this was going to be good? You know,
I will concede though that
I feel sometimes there could be a bleed with that we will end up. This will be our worst game category.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because we just put in stuff that was shit.
But like 12 minutes, that isn't on there for that reason. Like 12 minutes is one of those things where you go into it and it kind of starts and you're like, oh, hey, this is like saying. Really
I remember the trailers.
The trailer. Cool. Yeah, we were. And the voice cast, of us, they got really excited for that.
Okay. I will concede here though that if we redo this, if we leave it now and then redo the, it's not. I can see it's not winning. I will leave it go.
Yeah. I know no one's buying my thing, but I think if any of the four of us had caught it in the dock, we wouldn't have.
I think there's a legitimate reason for it being on here.
I think there's a legitimate reason for being disappointing, but I don't think like so much that we break the rules for one game and only one game.
I would say
we knocked off other games that weren't 2023. That didn't make this list.
I would say that if I could recommend, I think maybe going for, I think remakes should be, because they're potentially the most disappointing thing. I think they should be valid for this. I
think at some stage, I think what would actually be really good is, one, we're going to have the chat in the group chat, but I think maybe if we got Barry, if we got you onto some like actual normal link to the cast during the year and have the discussion
about
and do it like out in the open about like where because the thing I've always had trouble with, and I've tried to hold the line at absolute zero, is because the line is so hard to draw.
It's now
and at what point is a remake or a port a new thing?
Yeah.
We went so back and forth on Stanley Parable. We went so back and forth on Final Fantasy VII. Every year there is one of these, at least one of these.
I think, and again, we'll probably have that conversation. I think it comes down to whether it's a remake or a remaster. If it's a remake, I don't think it's for this. If it's a remaster, I think it's for this category. Because a remake, again, with like the Resident Evil 4 thing and whatnot. But yeah, that's the thing. We can come back to Parts Unknown later next year and
we'll bid adieu to Bond now.
Yeah. And that brings us to Mark.
I put it on here so it can come off The Last Case of Benedict's Fox. This really gorgeous looking 2.5D Metroidvania has like a lot of kind of Lovecraftian imagery and creatures.
Hello.
And for like the first kind of hour or two, sets a really strong impression. But then you quickly realize that the combat. You remember the combat in what the hell is that? Trek to
Yomi?
Yeah. Where you start off and you think, hey, this is pretty cool, and then you quickly realize, oh, there's actually nothing to this. And it's like the one thing I'm going to use the entire game. This doesn't even have that. It's very, very limited, and you kind of think it's trying to do it in that like Silent Hill kind of like forced limited combat kind of way. No, it's just frustrating and it's just no fun. It looks really, really pretty and it's got a really good vibe to it, but I think that the level design is super lacking, and it's very much more style than substance.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but it's not going to.
There's a weird common thread with like every couple of years there seems to be a game with real Lovecraftian vibes that comes out, and it's always the style over substance. Like it's always this seems really cool, but then I play it and it's shit. What was that one, Barry? Was it The Sunken City? The one where it was like the Lovecraft detective game,
Cthulhu thing.
Yeah. And that was like it was such a cool concept. It looked pretty okay, and then you play it, and it's just a bunch of bullshit. Like,
I always see that like on sale. I go, should I? No. People said that was bad. Yeah.
It was.
It looks cool.
Bad.
Yeah.
So goodbye, Benedict. Jack.
So genuinely, I don't know too much about this game. It's on the list. I had a look through some of the other kind of games here that I hadn't played or that I knew a little bit about, but not everything. And I looked at all the reviews and I was seeing what people were saying about it. I don't think Atomic Heart seems to have disappointed people that much.
What I would say to that is I would say absolutely on the thing that Barry said earlier, in as much as this game for me anyway came out I had no expectation.
Yeah.
And then like literally like I suppose the only length of time I had expectation was in between when I heard this game existed and when I downloaded it, during which time everyone was made to feel very morally murky about this game's origin. So you're if anything, like you start off with no expectation and then it dips even further. I think there's another category this is perfect for.
I think also the disappointment comes through when you actually play it, because as we might talk about later in the other category, this is kind of, it feels like it has the potential to bring back the B game a little bit and be that flawed, cool idea, messy execution game. It doesn't even really get there, and that is disappointing because it's not an awful game. But yeah, I had never even really heard of this until it came out.
It's got a lot of the look and the aesthetic of something you love, in as much as like a Soviet era Bioshock style game
thing,
But then apart from looking like, smelling like, and sounding like a thing you liked, it doesn't have its heart in it almost.
Yeah.
It's like Punk back on Raw.
Yeah.
The light isn't there behind the eyes.
The thing with Atomic Heart is it goes to what I was talking about with Last Case of Benedict Fox, where I think that the first 10, 15 minutes, again, it's, as you kind of mentioned with Bioshock there, it's kind of like setting you up in a way where you're seeing kind of like these kind of big open spaces and there's like a level of spectacle. And you're like, all right, there's definitely a craft here to how this looks and how this kind of like this feels. But then literally the moment the dialogue starts, you're like, oh no, we've taken a wrong turn here,
that
boys.
Protagonist, oh my God. He's like, not to sound like a fucking Puritan, but he's like one of those characters that like he's just like telling everyone like fuck off, and it's just like it's like charmless Duke Nukem. Do you know what I mean? He's irritated by everybody, but not in a lovable Dr. House kind of way, in a kind of, I'm gonna mute this and you're gonna be a podcast game.
Is this the start of it being Barry's year to go in on voice acting?
No. Listen, we get the best character. I got some.
What was the deal with this and like the sexualized robots as well?
I'm sure there was some meaning there that I didn't get, but there was sexy robots.
I think this is high, but it
probably can go. I would say.
Yeah.
Fuck this game.
Like I said, I think there's another category in which it probably like it stays longer.
I mean, a lot of what I saw of it and a lot of the reviews I read say that it's kind of outside of the weird stuff they're trying to do, which you either hate, like Barry hated it, or you kind of appreciate the sort of, I don't know, like Soviet stuff that's in there, and like, you know, they're trying to comment on artificial intelligence and do all of this stuff that, but it sounds like hasn't pulled it off really for even the people.
It's about, well, like at its best, it's about 60% of the way there.
Yeah.
Maybe you could push to a 65. Like, it knows the kind of game it's trying to be.
Yeah.
It wears its influences on its sleeve, but it's iterative. Like it's a bad covers album.
Yeah.
Do you know what I could say for disappointment of the year? It's just first-person shooters as a whole. Like, it hasn't really been like Modern Warfare. The new Modern Warfare has been very, very disappointing. This GoldenEye was, you know, the issues that we had with that.
Let me tell you, they fixed the Titanfall 2 servers though, so we have never been more fucking back. I put 12 hours into that game this year.
That game is so
I'm
good.
feeling good.
Like, genuinely, the potentially the best first-person shooter this year is the Quake 2 remaster. You know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or even like the Half-Life fucking thing that's just come out as well.
But yeah, like the gameplay to me, looking at YouTube, just looked like a slightly above average first person shooter.
At this stage in 2023, Cyberpunk's a better first person shooter.
Wow, yeah. Well,
I did buy Cyberpunk in the Steam sale. I'm not back in yet.
Can we whisper? It's kind of good.
Is it really? I'm kind of looking forward. That's going to be one of my Christmas games.
It works now. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking forward to it.
What, 3 years?
Yeah, I actually think I should have included it on my backlog. That I think if I had gotten to Phantom Liberty, I think it might have gotten to the not 2023.
Yeah,
because like there's another We Are So Back game.
Is there a potential category in the future for comeback of the year? Because there's been some gaming
There's
comeback.
been a few, yeah. Because
No
like
Man's
that feels
Sky,
like,
which won this
There's
category.
only so many fucking games I can play in a year. All right.
Yeah.
No, you will play No Man's Sky.
Well, Barry's Titanfall 2 for comeback of the year.
Oh God, it's still so good.
Still so good.
God.
Okay, Barry, you get to swing your axe for the first time.
I suppose I mentioned it earlier, so I'll go Sonic. When they revealed that trailer for this one, I was like, oh, they're doing Sonic 4 again. And then when it came out, they sure fucking are.
Yeah, because that's the thing as well, is like, I think at this point in time, if you got excited for a Sonic game, that's your fault.
Yeah, people want to say Sonic is back, and I will say, weirdly enough, because of the movies, Sonic is more of a pop culture thing than he has been since probably 91 or 2, which is cool, but on the game front, it's one game. People are dining out on Sonic Mania, which was now 4-ish years ago. Yeah. It's time to let it go.
This also wasn't the best Sonic game this year. And the best Sonic game this year wasn't the Sonic game.
Exactly, yeah. It was an April Fool's...
It was a game about Sonic.
Joke.
And I mentioned this either last week or the week before on the podcast. The thing that's frustrating about Sonic Superstars is that for as bad as Sonic Frontiers is, it at least kind of felt like Sega team were just like, fuck it, let's just try some things.
Let's do interesting.
Let's just try all the things.
Bad and interesting is always better than just bad.
Exactly. And you just come to this, and you know, you mentioned there, Barry, about Sonic 4. And it really is. And I remember, because I was a big Sonic fan, like 1, 2, 3 and Knuckles. I remember, you know, I had the lock-on cart for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. That was my jam. And I remember when like they announced that.
Did you ever try those comics, bud?
I didn't try the comics. No, you freak. But I remember when they announced Sonic 4 for Xbox Live Arcade, and I took one look at it, and I was like, that just looks fucking terrible.
It is against God.
And the moment you start like controlling Sonic,
abomination.
Like, this is just fucking. And it's like that. I mean, it was never officially like this is its frame of reference, but you look at it as like Sonic 4 was your frame of reference. Why the fuck could you do that? Sonic Mania exists. That was your like the best thing that the Sonic team. Well, it wasn't the Sonic team, but the best thing Sonic related in I don't know 20 odd years or so,
or ever maybe.
Yeah.
And Stephanie Sterling made this point a little while ago that the problem that the Sonic team and Sega have is that they don't like have one Sonic game and kind of just like take a gimmick or a mechanic or whatever and work on it for a couple of games and see if they can like improve and refine on it. AKA like you think about like Mario been basically the same team for 30 odd years. But every new Sonic game, like you're going from like Sonic 06 to Sonic Colors to Sonic and the Black Knight to Sonic Unleashed to fucking the Sonic Lost Worlds and the Rise of Lyric, and they're all a completely different type of game, and they're all fucking bad.
Sonic United, Sonic City, Sonic Wanderers.
Have we all seen the poster for Sonic 3?
No.
Shadow's coming, buddy.
Oh,
He was in the post-credit scene for Sonic 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you not seen Sonic 2?
No, I haven't seen Sonic 2.
Sonic 2 is pretty good.
Yeah.
You like stayed for the post credits, yeah?
You better fucking believe I did. I was paid off. I got to see Sonic. I got to see fucking Shadow. And it's like they're presenting him in such a way that I would say there is a 50 chance that he will literally have a gun. I think there is a chance he will have a gun. He's gonna keep that motherfucking thing on him.
Tell you what, that Shadow the
even if
Hedgehog
it's just-
remaster, one of these days.
I'd almost put like that they would like. I'd almost put money on that they will do it, but in a cute like there'll be a scene where he has a Nerf gun. Or he picks up a Nerf gun or a gun-shaped thing and goes, nah. Yeah. There'll be something like too cutesy.
Sonic
like
2 is pretty good. Those movies are alright. Those movies are alright.
Do you know what's not alright? Sonic Superstars.
Well, there you go. And that's why it's out of here.
It's out of here. Okay, so I'm going to go with, by virtue of the fact I haven't played it, I don't know what the grassroots support around the table is for it, Gunbrella.
So this, I think this is the me and Garrett joint, and it's kind of the same thing where like the trailer for it looked really cool. This kind of side-scrolling action platformer. The fact that you have an umbrella that is a gun, hey, thumbs up.
Kingsman
represent.
I was going to say Penguin, but you know.
And you just start playing it, and it's just like, nah, it just doesn't feel right. I don't know. There's a certain tangible quality. Like there are certain games where as soon as you start moving and start you just doing anything in it, you're like, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right to play. And it kind of visually, it's lacking. And it's just all round. Like I find the environments quite bland and actually quite confusing to know about like what's the foreground, what's the background, and where I can actually move in the environment. And it's not any kind of like heavy hitter here, so it can definitely go. But just go one of those like you saw the trailer and you're like, okay, that looks like something that I would probably play. But
just for the record, shit sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, we're sticking with you.
Ooh, boy. Look, yeah. All right, I know I'm the high man on this game, but I don't think Final Fantasy 16 is winning this.
Listen here, right? Listen here.
Jack, come on. You knew going in that this wasn't going to be Final Fantasy 10.
Okay, just fucking hear me out for a second, okay? I grew up loving the Final Fantasy games, okay?
When I was a young boy.
When I were a lad, I fucking loved the Final Fantasy games. Mate, I loved it.
You do this whole category in your Jack Duckworth voice.
So basically, no, I can't.
Could you please once ask if I'm going down to pub?
You're going to a pub, but he's got hot pot some.
Thanks.
You go to GameStop, give me that Final Fantasy 16.
Hey, Granny, you got Titans in it, you fucking bastards. But let me give you.
You've gone full. You've leaned into Bo Selecta there, by the end.
Craig David. Yeah. It was my personality growing up, part of my personality growing up, as you well know, because you grew up with me.
Hi, Jack.
Okay, like Final Fantasy 8 is my favorite game of all time. I loved 7, I loved 9, I loved 10, I really like 12. 13 was tough for me. It was tough. It wasn't great. They made 3 of them. The story is the most convoluted, ridiculous piece of shit I've ever heard in my life. And then 15, boy band in a car. I was playing it and I was like, it's gonna get good eventually. It didn't get good.
It's got some boy band on it. It's still good. It
didn't get good. They messed the story around, all kinds of crazy stuff. Me and Garrett spoke about it on a podcast, which would probably be around a month and a half ago now if you're listening to this as it releases in December. And Final Fantasy 16, I was like, you know, it's a Final Fantasy game. They've gone back a little bit, like sort of medieval kind of Final Fantasy feel. The trailers look kind of rad. You know, the graphics look good. Everything looked okay, you know? And I was like, okay, maybe I'm back. Maybe I'm into it. Maybe it's going to return to its former glory. And then I played it, and I was playing it, and I was still playing it, and there was no feeling, there was no emotion, there was no, this is hooking me in, there was no systems that I liked. The game, I did not like the combat, I don't like the dodgy horribleness. Every game feels like it has to have like a parry button in it now and stuff, and you need to learn how to parry, and I don't want to do that, but I don't want to play a hack and slash game. I like playing a game, like, to me, the one thing that I would say about Baldur's Gate 3 that kind of appealed to me was because it was a turn-based combat system. I really like a turn-based combat system, and that kind of went away. It was sort of gone in Final Fantasy 15, but there was a bit there, and the combat, I just couldn't play it. I just didn't like it, and it makes me so painful. And I think why it's in this category for me more than anything is I'm like, okay, maybe Final Fantasy isn't for me anymore.
For you anymore.
It's gone.
You're having the moment this year I had with Pokemon last year.
Yeah.
It's passed me by.
And it hurts because, like I said, it's such a massive part of my childhood, like a massive part of my formative years. Like I imagine it's like people that listen to the Smiths and love Morrissey, and then
go on Google for the first time.
And they made, exactly, but they made loving the Smiths part of their whole personality. You know, the melancholy lyrics, like he really speaks to me, and then you realize he's actually speaking to BNP voters, and it's painful. And it's like, okay, well, what they really want to do, what Square want to do with Final Fantasy, and this is why I think you like it so much, Mark, is just make Devil May Cry, will you? Just fucking.
Okay. Can I interject? Can I interject at this
Devil
point?
May Cry. That's what you want to do.
Can I just interject at this point? I kind of like Final Fantasy 16.
No, but as a result of that, I'm kind of not expecting it to win because this is more about possibly me than it is about Final Fantasy 16.
But the reason why, like, I think you dug it a bit, I dig it a bit, is because of the reasons you don't like it.
No. All right.
Oh yeah, because I guess you more than me, or me more than you. Because
I'm really sad about Jack Ashley. I don't know if it's the game or it's him.
You in recent years have become more of a Final Fantasy guy than you were.
Well, no, it's just so much. I'm
almost
more,
out of stubbornness.
No. I'm more like accustomed to turn-based games, and my favorite Final Fantasy game is 6. And
it's a great game.
And like if you were like to say what was my favorite Final Fantasy game this year, I'd say it was 4, not 16. And
great game also.
And I actually think as like an action hack and slash type of game, I actually don't think Final Fantasy 16 is that great. It's a far inferior, not even Devil May Cry, but like fucking like Metal Gear Revengeance.
Yeah, there's Revengeance vibes off it. Yeah,
the combat is so fucking like limited and basic compared.
No nanomachines. It should be said for people that are getting really excited.
There is that. But I got through Final Fantasy 16 for a couple of reasons. First of all, I actually quite enjoyed the character of Clive. I thought that.
We didn't spend enough time this year talking about his name's fucking Clive.
Yeah.
Swords and Sorcery RPG, and there's fucking Clive.
He doing missions for a person called Esmerath and shit like that.
He is definitely a dour-faced skip, but I think that he has an arc, and by the end of it, he's got a bit of a personality to him.
I like Clive, and I think it's an interesting story. That's why it hurts me so much that it felt like shit to play.
Because there's a shred of the Final Fantasy you like still in there, maybe.
It's in there. And they went Game of Thrones with the style of the story, and it was like, it's obvious they're doing this theme.
The most jarring thing about it is the kind of linearity of like the, because this is the problem with like a lot of modern AAA games these years, where the environments are so packed in that you feel like you're playing a fucking Crash Bandicoot game in terms of like how narrow like the areas and environments you can be in.
There's like a lot of games I thought about during my time with Final Fantasy 16. I have to say Crash Bandicoot was not among them. At least we're all on the consensus that we're all part of the Clive Hive.
Oh, absolutely.
And
and also, like, I think for me, it's not that it's the most disappointing, but it's the most frustrating thing about Final Fantasy 16 is, right, you've got Platinum Games on board. And there's only a couple of times where it feels like, oh, right, Platinum Games are actually able to flex their muscles here. Like the Titan fight and the Behemoth fight they are two of the gaming moments of the year. And I'm frustrated that at least the Titan fight isn't on for gaming moment of the year. It has its moments where you get those peaks. And you have, crucially more than anything else, the soundtrack.
It's very, very good.
It's phenomenal.
I can't argue with that.
Was Garrett in a similar position to you? Like in terms of, I know he's really high on the soundtrack too.
I think he is. I think he's higher on the game than me. I think I don't know if he feels a similar way to me, but
he does like Clive.
Yeah. You didn't finish it, right?
No, I couldn't, Mark.
I mean, they're long. Those games are long.
It's long, but also
if you're not into it,
and it was like, do I really want to put more time into a game that's making me feel like this? It's kind of making me reconsider what I put my energy into as a child. And then those games still exist. I can go and play those original Final Fantasy games whenever I like. I played 8 like once every couple of years anyway, just because I love it. And it's not for me anymore. But I get it. Like, so I'm going to come round. I had to cut my promo here, but I'm going to come round and say that there's enough things in this game in terms of the way it looks, the kind of, the music, the voice acting, the characters are kind of interesting for it not to be a full-weighted disappointment. But
I get your frustrations and I get your disappointment.
Yeah, and it's a comment. I've seen a lot of people who love Final Fantasy be very frustrated about the way is this franchise just an action game now? And
I kind of think, like, again, it's very similar. You sound so similar to me with Pokemon last year, where like I kind of now, me and Mark, it's not like we're as high on Final Fantasy as you and Garrett were with me last year on Pokemon.
Yeah.
But I was just like, this was the moment where me and to a lesser extent Mark, who didn't even pick it up, I don't know if you have since, but like that was the moment where I realized I'm out on Pokemon.
Yeah.
And like I've still got, thanks to my like Retroid and stuff, I've still got the old ones that I can play anytime and I still love. It's not like, and to try the Final Fantasy thing one more time, I have been very tempted in talking about the backlog earlier to get the Pixel remasters in a sale at some stage.
Very good.
Yeah, because again, we talk about, like, me and Garrett are constantly harping on that, like, you've got this HD 2D thing. It's like, why aren't you doing this? Like, putting every old game through this treasure. Like,
I still maintain, because considering as well, like, one of the big issues with Final Fantasy 16 is it did not meet like Square Enix projections, though none of the games ever do. They have,
I don't know what their projections are anymore,
insane.
you know.
And I keep thinking to myself, like, why do you not just have like, all right, you want to. So what's happened here with Final Fantasy 16 is Final Fantasy is like they've leaned into the sports entertainment and they need to kind of, you know, go back to what to the dance. And I do think what they need to do is they need to.
Would Clive ever enter a G1? That's what
they need to have like their every like even numbered game. They do this action RPG nonsense, and then just for your odd games, just do a fucking like 2.5 Octopath.
Just restore the feeling.
Yeah, but I get people will say to me like Octopath 2 came out this year, and I'm like, yeah, played it, didn't end up finishing it, but really liked it. Bravely Default 2 came out like a couple of years ago. It was still, you know, that's in the Square family. Yeah, it felt good to play. But it's Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
It's Final Fantasy.
If you're not hearing
exactly. And it's kind of like if somebody made Star Wars like a gritty procedural, like people would be pissed at that. Okay,
we've lived through Star Wars rage, you know. So,
but like
almost the entire time we've been alive.
But people wouldn't be happy.
I don't think those people like Star Wars, Mary.
But people would be out on Star Wars, is what I mean. Some people are out on Star Wars because they made the movies hacky in the way that they were just trying to rehash the same thing. But yeah, Final Fantasy 16, the Final Fantasy series has been gradually changing, and I don't know if I've changed or it's changed or both of us have changed, but the relationship has come to an end. I am looking out there actively for a new game series to throw my hat on. If I had to say it though, clearly I'm still a massive like Hitman guy. I still love Pokemon. Like I'm not out on Pokemon, and I get all the arguments against it that you made last year, but I'm still in on it. Whereas Final Fantasy, I'm just gone now.
I just hope that day doesn't come for you. That like you don't lose another one.
But it did for Pokemon Go this year.
Yeah,
I was like, and that's mainly because,
you were the one.
Yeah, but that was because mainly the company that run it are just completely ridiculous in every possible way. But yeah, I'm happy for it to come off the list.
Right.
But geez, like for me, it probably is my biggest disappointment of the year.
Yeah.
But I get why it wouldn't be for you three.
Well, we're going to stick with you, Jack.
I'm looking at the categories here. So 3 of these games I've played and been disappointed by, which the one I haven't, and it may well be someone's super hardcore passion project, Redfall. Pitch me.
I find Redfall funnier more than anything else. I think it's funny how bad this game is.
I never got around to it.
Barry?
I as an Arcane lover, I went to Redfall. Actually, I think it was recently, and it was like I think October or maybe early November, because it's on Game Pass and it was specifically for this, and I was just kind of like, and also by coming to it around that time, I had given it its couple of patches. It hadn't yet gotten its fucking performance mode patch, which only just came out a couple of weeks ago, which is insane. So I booted it up and I said, I wanted to, you know, as we all do, I wanted to see it for myself. Man, it stinks. Man, it's bad. It's ugly. It's annoying. It's got those, you know when you're playing Hitman 2 and you were like, what the fuck happened to the budget here with these cutscenes? These like still image cutscenes that scream, we had no money. It's got those going on for it, and it's just like, it's got, and I am really Mr. fucking Grump on. I'm just out on your live service games. I have never cared for this genre. I don't care, with the exception of Fortnite. Though that genre is it's just so numbing to me.
Did you cancel your Suicide Squad pre-order?
I mean, you know what the funny thing is? I got a code to get into that alpha, and I blew it off to come and do this shit. Let me tell you.
Are you hyped for Sony's 6 live service games?
Yeah, I mean,
year?
like the only one I gave a shit about was the Last of Us one, and then Bungie came in and were like, this isn't live service enough, and they pushed it back. So
hear me out. Live service GoldenEye remaster, Barry. How do you feel about that?
I feel like with the kind of the Suicide Squad thing of like them being so scared that they delayed the game and tried to retool it as much as possible. I feel like maybe putting my flag in the sand that we're maybe 18 months away from the tipping point where people start jumping off that ship really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're kind of there though. Like, think about the amount of cancellations that have happened. I mean, rest in peace, Rumbleverse. The world didn't deserve you. You were class.
I won't be satisfied that it's over or that we're past peak until the big boys are starting to back off.
Yeah. Which is probably a ways off yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing, I think Redfall probably can be cut because when you were watching the trailers for these things, there was an unshakable feeling that you weren't getting the Primo Arcane. And in fact, you did not get the Primo Arcane. I mean, Redfall, it's not been a great year for Xbox because Redfall in another game.
I was going to say,
if we did outright, this is one of the worst games of the year, I think Microsoft would sadly have a couple of heavy hitters on it.
Yeah.
Redfall is shit. It is really bad, but I wasn't really excited for it realistically, so it can go, you know.
Yeah, there's a conversation to be had at some point on the regular podcast. This isn't maybe the venue about how like everyone but Nintendo is really struggling with first party now.
Yes.
Yep.
Like Sony have hits, but in between the hits, there's wide open spaces. And Xbox, I don't know what the shit is going on with Xbox. Like, I was like, why don't we just buy some more studios? Maybe the problem will solve itself.
and the Game Pass kind of subscribers has plateaued a little bit as well. Like, line cannot continuously go
That's
up.
what's going to happen when there isn't something like first party that I can only play here.
Totally. I think that plateau is people going, this service rocks.
By
and
the
it'll
way,
only climb with they have the greatest first party
one of the
games.
games left on this list is a good reason that people would have done it this year.
And I feel like at this point, the thing, you know, they keep emptying the chamber of here's 10 more games on Game Pass, which is great for us that already have the service.
Sure. Literally, in terms of yesterday, I think they announced
like
10
Far Cry
games.
6.
Yeah. But I feel
Far Cry
like
6, wow.
Yeah, and Remnant 2 and
I feel like the only stuff they have actually in the chamber apart from that now is 2 bullets named Halo and Gears of War, where it's just like,
Halo's kind of
let's just
done.
put
I was going to
another
say,
one.
you can thinking about what happened with Halo Infinite and everything around that.
Yeah.
And like that's in this weird kind of state of like, they probably need to get that over to another studio.
I think so,
unless someone else have a go at it.
I love the campaign in that game.
No, it's
the
great.
campaign
I
in
think
that game
the
was
Halo Infinite
great.
campaign is tremendous, but the way that thing has been kind of mismanaged over the last like 10, 15 years or so, it's like it desperately needs
Remember
to go
the old
to someone
Master
else.
Chef collection? Where like they put out all the
Steam sale.
they put out all the old Halo games and the multiplayer didn't work.
Yeah.
That was a great time.
And Gears of War, I mean, do we need another Gears of War?
No, but they will give us another one.
They will.
Well, there's always a spot on our okayest game of the year list for the next Gears of War.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be a Gears of War like not remastered, but like a remake at some point.
Bring on the chest high walls, guys. That's
So Redfall is gone, which leaves us for our last cut. Barry,
Okay.
this is.
Do we want to say what 3 games are left?
So we've got AEW Fight Forever, Sports Story, and Starfield.
Yeah.
I mean,
All 3 worthy contenders. I think we all have our own takes around the table about what the 1 and 2. Like in my head, I have a straightforward 1 and 2.
I think part of why I would want to cut Sports Story, I was kind of low on golf was the
Golf
first
Story.
Golf Story.
But we were really high.
You were already high in it.
yeah,
I think that's the disparity. And I was kind of like,
It's because it was a real RPG, Barry.
it was a real good solid 2 hours of a joke in a game that was about 5 times longer than it needed to be. But anyway, we're not talking about Golf Story, so I didn't really have any expectations because this isn't even the first sequel, is it? There was another one, wasn't there?
No, there was somebody else made it. There's somebody else.
Oh, somebody else made it. Yeah,
somebody tried to beat them to the punch on Sports Story. I can't remember what the name of that
cheeky.
game was.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it was like a football
story or
because
something
I
like
remember
that.
I played that for about half an hour. I went, well, this is bad. Never looked back.
So I didn't touch Sports Story because I didn't really care about the last one, but I understand you guys were bummed about it.
I would be inclined to agree with you. Like I was disappointed by I didn't end up playing it for that long, but compared to the other 2, I think like the titanic gap a bit between what the other 2 games could have been and what they were isn't even like. Sports Story is kind of like I hope this is good. Oh, it's not good. These are these have really high ceilings to be
other two
something
are-
very special.
The other
And
two
they
are
ended
we
up
were
as-
counting on you. We were counting on you to be good.
You were supposed to be the chosen one.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's like long-term ramifications to these other two games.
Yes.
One was supposed to basically save an entire genre of game.
Yeah.
And the other one was supposed to be like a tentpole action RPG we were all going to be playing for years.
Yeah.
You know, whereas Sports Story is kind of like a wet fart of a game coming out by
no,
comparison.
I think that's fair.
And I guess one other thing to say about Sports Story is that the team that made the game got really hit during the pandemic, and like they were kind of thin on the ground with
Yeah.
people.
Because it was supposed to come out during the panda, was it?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And there was a lot of conflict as well, I think, between like the development team and I don't know if it was like the publisher or like someone high up in the studio, where they had like Easter eggs in the game to kind of like express their frustration with the development
there
of
was
it.
like a room, wasn't there, where the developers were, and they all said things about how much, look, the game wasn't good, and the new sports in it weren't that great. There were so many fetch quests where you had to go away and find something when you weren't playing it. After every section there was a round of golf, and it just reminded you like, okay, the golf mechanic in this previous game was really cool.
I should just go play that, you know.
Yeah.
Do you know what? It feels like they just spread themselves too thin.
I think so, yeah.
And it was either a case of you just needed to do a golf story too, or you needed to pick another sport and stick with that one
with that,
sport.
yeah.
So we get to the other two.
Are we just duking it out now?
I suppose the person who has the most time put into AEW is you, Barry.
Yeah.
So do you want to do the AEW, and I might, unless somebody else feels that they want to do the Starfield.
I spent about 20 minutes with Starfield.
Okay, so I'll do Starfield if you do.
I played like
I'm sure
2 minutes.
you
of
have a
the
bit on
space
Starfield
combat.
as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
if you want to lead on AEW, I'll lead on Starfield.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing about Fight Forever is, as you alluded to there, I mean, it really was supposed to kind of really elevate the wrestling genre, because in the
Revive it.
yeah, that's actually a better way, because it has just been WWE, and in the last 15-ish years there's been so many Steam Early Access and Kickstarters and a ton of projects with loads of potential, but they either didn't materialize or they've remained in Early Access forever, disappeared into the ether with lots of money, so on and so forth. And so
The closest thing you have to keeping it alive is you have Fire Pro off doing its own thing.
yeah, which is so, and I like, actually when Fire Pro World came out a couple of years ago, like I still jump back into it every now and then, but I've just never vibed with Fire Pro. Fire Pro is like niche within a niche within a niche. I think you have to, it's a very specific kind of game.
I feel weird, like maybe it's maybe it's a different comparison, but for me, it's always felt like the FIFA and Pro Evo thing, where from the outside, people are looking at and going, they're the same thing. What the fuck are you talking about? Like different art style, yeah. But when you get inside it, the WWE games, that type of wrestling game, and the type of thing Fire Pro are doing are so different. They're opposite ends of a spectrum.
And I think because and obviously in happier times there was such a dichotomy, but an exciting one even within just the realm of WWE games. Like SmackDown and then the N64 games were both awesome in their own unique ways, you know. And then in the SmackDown versus Raw era, you had TNA, which wasn't an amazing game, but they had a pretty solid first effort.
What a wild story mode!
With a wild story mode that actually bled over onto TV, which is great. Yeah. So there was a lot hinging on Fight Forever, and I think part of what makes it a real contender here for this title. I remember actually the day it launched, and the reviews were so tepid. Kind of deservedly so. I did a launch day stream of it. I played it for about 6 hours on stream.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think Mark at the time, you said that you thought it was a lock for disappointment of the year. And I initially said, well, I don't know necessarily. Yeah. I kind of pushed back on that. And it was just kind of the more I put into it. Like, when you pick up Fight Forever for the first time, when you boot it up, and you just pick a random singles match just to get in there and feel what it feels like. You're like, oh, okay. Like, this is kind of something, you know.
Do you know what I was reminded of the more I played it was, I remember somebody said to me about that Star Wars Battlefront when that got rebooted.
Yes.
If you only play it for 20 minutes, it's the best game you'll play this year.
You go on Hoth, you're like, oh my God, they did it. They brought it back.
Every 20 minutes after that, you're like, oh, that's a bit shit. Oh, that shouldn't be like that. Oh, that's a bit awkward.
Yeah, and this and kind of the charm slowly started to fade away. I mean, first of all, there's all the things outside of the core wrestling which are so disappointing. The career mode is so basic. The creation suite is laughable.
Really
it is.
bad.
It's like, it's not even like disappointing compared to WWE. It's pathetic. It's
PS1
so
level.
bad. It is. Yeah.
The Street Fighter 6 like
blows it
is,
away.
like
blows
so
it away.
much more fucking.
Whoa, long.
Yeah.
And pick a game with a creative character this year. It
The
blows it away.
fucking teaspoon deep mini games.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to commit to the mini games thing. Fucking commit.
Yeah, and they really didn't. But the thing that really bummed me out the more I played, and the reason I think it's a lock in this, is that as solid as I think the fundamentals are, I thought, and I was saying to this people on launch day when I was streaming this, I was like, well, creation's bad and story mode is lame, but I still play No Mercy, and here comes the pain to this day, because I just go into exhibition mode and I just play it, and maybe this will be one of those games. But unfortunately, the more you play of that exhibition and the more you dive into the actual mechanics there, it's just shy of what you want depth wise.
I also think in terms of, like, we talk about disappointment, and the thing we always come back to is that chasm between expectation and reality.
Yeah.
And I think AEW and the developers did themselves no fucking favors. They talked this up like this was going to save everything.
Not even just that, but they announced it like
Way too
basically
early.
they probably signed the paperwork to say, "Hey, we're making this," and then announced it.
I feel like
which
we were
was-
maybe 6 months into Dynamite, and
You
they
know,
announced it was 2020. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's funny because like one talking point I really hated was like, oh my god, this game's been in development forever. It's like, no, it's been in development the normal amount of time a game takes, but they just announced it. Yeah, like it really seems like as soon as they signed the papers, they said, tell people we're making the game.
Yeah.
Presumably because they got sick of people asking them, hey, are you doing a game?
And they were probably genuinely excited as well.
Yeah,
right?
but that was a huge misfire, and yeah.
Can we talk about one of the funniest things about it is like the development, they missed their original date by so long that they had to take CM Punk out of the game, put him back in, and within months of it being out, he was fired.
Yeah.
Well, that's just wrestling games.
Yeah.
For me, the thing is, like, when I was playing it, and, you know, I'm someone that played a disgusting amount of No Mercy back in the day, and I can still play it now, and just the muscle memory is there. And I was playing it, and I was like, right, you have, like, the shell of an idea of what... It's kind of like, you know, if you were to ask ChatGPT to write the code for a No Mercy type of clone, this is what it'd come up with. And the thing that it's missing is momentum. Because when you play against the computer on No Mercy, and you play on one of the hardest settings, there is a real, like, momentum shift where a match can go for 20 minutes because it's not just that you're, like, hitting a body part and then at some point it goes red, and then as soon as you pin them, that's it, game over. Yeah. You go back and forth, there's peaks, there's valleys, like, it's all based on how that momentum meter works. And Fight Forever doesn't have that. And in the same way, at least. So, like, if you're damaged enough, the AI is immediately just trying to pin you as quickly as it can, and like a match can be over in about 5 or 6 minutes.
Oh, I don't think I've ever gotten to 6. Yeah, it's like 3. Yeah,
and so I was playing Fight Forever for, I don't know, about like 2 hours or so, and I was like, because I hadn't played No Mercy in a while, so it's like, I just have to go back and play like a round of No Mercy. And I had like a fucking 25-minute classic, like I think it was X-Pac and Jericho or whatever. And I was like, this is it. This is how this game is meant to feel. And Fight Forever is just a husk of that.
I think there was, and maybe this explains the feeling you had, Barry, when it launched is the same as I did, where it's like, it's still good. It's still like, you know, because I think there was enough there that with committed, proper and thorough patching and fixing and a content strategy that made sense, it wasn't all that was lost. But I think the final nail in the coffin for me on the game was like not that long ago when the first DLC pack came out, and they were charging, like, not only were they charging for it, where like really I think everybody kind of agreed on, like, they should, like, as a mea culpa, at least put like some stuff out for free before they start charging you for another season pass.
Even just to change the way these things have been done for years, because people always, because they've also said, and it's kind of in the name, that they're planning to do, they hope to do another game, but this is the game for a couple of years. And I thought, and when they started talking about that, I was like, okay, thing that makes the most sense that WWE doesn't do, that you guys can really carve yourself out, is you want to charge for another season of wrestlers, great, do that. But to me, the Dynamite stage, new gear for people who've like changed gimmicks since the game came out, like Chris Statlander, that stuff should be free. Get an edge over the competition and say, okay, we're going to charge you for the Acclaimed, but the new Dynamite stage, just to modernize it with TV, that's free.
So wasn't that last DLC pack like 25 quid or something fucking asinine?
The new season's 25 quid. Yeah.
By the way, one thing that I found really difficult, I mean, aside from the fact that me and Dave, we played it like very soon after it came out.
Yeah, we had good fun for a little while, but like then we ended up just playing FIFA, I think.
There were loads of modes that we couldn't like find or matches,
and that whole thing. Like I don't know if you want. I don't want to like because I don't want to spend too long just on this one game, but I don't know if you want to like just. I think a very crystallized example that you might be able to illustrate, Barry, is FTR.
Oh,
in the
man.
game. I think that sums up everything that's just arsey
They actually
about the
have
game.
fixed that in a recent update, but it took them months, and that was basically kind of like most games, they have a create a team mode, so you can go in and you can stick fucking like Wardlow and Moxley in a team, give them a team name and a team entrance, whatever. That'd be class team. Give me the book.
Moxley.
But basically, they put out FTR as DLC. They were the first team on the first season pass
On day one,
which was a little bit annoying, but whatever. So you buy your season pass, and there's Cash and there's Dax available to play as. But if you do a tag match with the two of them, they come out separately because you, the player, would have to go in to create a tag team, create a team called FTR, add the two of them, and then manually pick their entrance parts from the scrolling list. And they weren't even called like FTR 1 and 2 in the entrance. Like, so you had to just know what and they had some stupid names, some kind of Cash, and like they had some kind of pun name in the entrances, and you had to pick what their finisher was, which is fair enough, the Shatter Machine, but then also like their tag team signatures, you'd no clue what they are. I booted it up recently in preparation for, I just wanted to actually get a bit of a refresher on it ahead of that new season and ahead of this. So they've added a feature now called Released Teams, where it's basically you went to create a team, and they have a thing that updates with DLC teams. So now, but again, it was like on day one, you just like all I saw whenever you were talking to people on Twitter about FTR is, does anyone know what their second signature move should be? Because the game doesn't, and you have to do it with the Hardys. Actually, I think the Hardys actually don't have, or they didn't have released. They didn't have tag because Matt was DLC.
Yeah.
So I don't think they had a tag team entrance.
Multiple mats were DLC.
Oh god, yeah, what a great pre-order bonus. Yeah.
But by the way, can we just mention as well that half the character models were awful as well. Like,
because some of them were like, that's fucking incredible.
Yeah, the classic wrestling dichotomy of half class, half absolute shite.
Yeah, and like the thing about it, right? So, like, now I don't know for a fact. I have heard that the latest WWE game is a return to form.
Yes,
everybody has said that. But the one, the thing you know about the WWE games, even when mechanically, like bell to bell, they weren't fun to play. When they had their messing around with like the stupid, this year our submission's going to run on a lockpick mechanism. A rock paper scissors mechanism. They just couldn't decide for themselves, right? So even if that stuff's unpleasant, the one or two things that are rock solid about WWE that will like keep you coming back are, I think that universe mode is genius.
Yes,
to have a procedurally generated career mode that never ends.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That like there are so many permutations that will keep people who can actually stomach the gameplay. It keeps them coming back. And the other thing, like we said, with the exception of that 1 year when they transitioned to PS4. Yes, the creation suite in those games has been incredible for like as long as I can remember. And like, so you're developing this game and here's one thing that we need to hit. We need to hit it. There is a bar set for this thing. Yeah. They didn't even bother with a universe mode like in the same way that WWE are doing it, but they did try to do a creation suite, and like I genuinely would rather that there wasn't one in it than what they did.
And the funny thing is, the options were bad, and there was no sharing. There was no community sharing.
Attitude.
The community creations. The community creations is one of the best ideas ever because it basically allows you to put any wrestler in those WWE games without them having to license every wrestler that exists.
I played not this year's one that people loved. I played the previous one, which was also that was kind of the beginning of the comeback. And A, it was really good. I didn't love it, but it was really good. And B, day one, you want community creations, and the most picture perfect Kenny Omega you've ever seen is on there.
You want to have $1 million champ Mitsuharu Misawa? You can do that.
It is honestly so great. I mean, it's I think like for all the flack 2K justifiably, or I guess it was THQ who innovated it. A phenomenal feature in a wrestling game, and it really like PS3, 360, great use of burgeoning online functionality in those consoles was community creations. It's phenomenal.
Here's the kicker. Even if they'd gotten like a rock solid universal mode and there was actual content in the creator wrestling mode, I just think the core gameplay is lacking. Is not where it needs to be. Yeah, sure. And above everything else, that is the core issue. If they had just had the game come out and it had like, you know, a couple of like modes in terms of 1v1, tag team, blah, blah, blah. And like the creator wrestler mode, which was, you know, say even like 40% of where it is now. And then it was like, all right, in 6 months' time, we'll have like a universal mode or a GM mode or blah, blah, blah. In a year's time, we'll have this. You'd have been like, all right, it's not great. But as long as that core gameplay was there, and I am wanting to play this at least like once or twice a week.
On modes as well. I know I was the one that 5 minutes ago said we should probably move on from this game, but just like more stuff is coming to my mind. Like in terms of mode, like this game doesn't have a cage match.
I know, yeah. It's
like,
kind of like
one of the, not only a match mode that has been in games as far back as like No Mercy.
An Attitude.
But, an Attitude. But also one that is like...
That they've worked really hard on TV.
On TV, if you watch AEW... Like there are two stipulations that when I hear they're doing it, I'm like, right, that's pretty much a guaranteed good match, and it's cage match and Texas Death.
Yeah.
And like how a cage match, like I was genuinely shocked that a cage match wasn't it. I'm not like I would have been saying I'd be playing cage matches all the time, but I'm just like, that is such a glaring omission, and something that, again, based on the fact that they've been doing them since the 90s, it shouldn't be that hard.
I mean, like that, as far as I'm aware, that is a new engine from the ground up.
Yes,
I have to imagine.
It seems so, yeah.
And so, you know, like the 2K games, they have, you know, like iterating on that same engine for however long now. When you create an engine from the ground up, there are challenges involved, and the fact that the game took as long as it did, that doesn't come as a surprise. I do think if a Fight Forever 2 comes along at some point, I imagine
Forever 2 is such an oxymoron.
We will have,
it was supposed to be forever.
We will have a much better game.
I think so. I think there's potential.
But this thing still came out, and it still is what it was.
One thing I will absolutely not buy at Early Doors, the second one. You know what I mean? Like we've all learned our lesson on that.
Did you get your all in Wembley tickets yet?
Yeah. Let's talk Starfield.
Okay.
Oh.
We should be sitting around this table like we did last year, where before we hit record, we were like, well, Elden Ring's winning. There should, like, with the level of expectation, everything that was behind this game, we should be sitting here going, right, well, this is just 10 hours of us talking until we say Game of the Year is Starfield.
Yeah.
And as somebody who, like, personally, so I've never been an Elder Scrolls guy, but I am a Fallout guy. Right?
Yep.
And this is like being pitched to me as Fallout in space. And I am somebody that, because I play Bethesda games, I expect, and I said this to you guys all the way in the lead up, I was like, well, this game is not going to work for 1 to 3 months. So like, even when I factor in that, combined with the expectations I had before that, the fact that I played this game for 15 hours or so and then stopped dead, uninstalled it, never played it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is a studio that came around, you want to talk about like broken games that didn't feel fun to play when they came out. They eventually turned me around on Fallout 4.
Yep.
Like if I go back to Fallout 4, maybe try for a couple of hours now, I could get a platinum on it.
By the way, ironically, this game kind of actually was working quite well when it came out.
It's about the only thing I could say for it is that it actually worked.
My problems with it don't really involve it being broken.
It went exactly the opposite way. So it's like, it's not, this time it wasn't, I'm not going to be able to play it for 1 to 3 months. It's like, I'm not going to want to play it after 1 to 3 months. It is... I think it is the game. Like, I felt I was taking crazy pills to a certain extent where, like, when No Man's Sky came out, and I conceded to everyone's arguments at the time, but always enjoyed No Man's Sky.
Right.
It's totally what everybody said about No Man's Sky when it came out in terms of there is nothing to do. That's what everybody said about No Man's Sky. Like, I was still having fun, dicking around, doing, like, little resource management, survival elements and things like that. There was still enough where I was enjoying it, even if I could concede to that. There is nothing to do in this game. No. There is nothing to do. One of the things, if you're going to like do a space travel action RPG kind of situation, is you have to nail the feeling, the exhilaration of space travel. And one thing that No Man's Sky had day one
was that
there is nothing like the rush of the first time when you fix your ship in No Man's Sky and you get in and you break atmo and you go out and you see the breadth of the galaxy you're in and you hit the star map for the first time and see the enormity of it. And you can't manually travel between star systems in No Man's Sky, but you can travel to each individual planet.
Yeah.
You know? I couldn't. That's the one that, like, there's so much more to get into on Starfield, but one thing I could not get over within the first hour was just like, you're just fast traveling.
Yeah.
Like, it's just levels.
You
It's
can't
not,
just
there's
fly
no,
around in space.
there's no sense that, well, you can, but you can't land. You can't take off.
You can't get to another
You
planet.
can fast travel to space.
Yeah.
Fly around in space where, like, the planets are static things that don't
yeah.
ever get closer or
it's so
further
bad.
away.
Well, that's it. You fast travel to a pocket around a planet.
Yeah.
That's it. And then when you land on the planet, you're not landing on different parts of the planet necessarily. You're just
Yeah.
landing where you
On
land.
our pre-made city.
and then
like,
every place that you land is bland as shit, to be honest.
Like the first person, like, or sorry, the shooting in it is Fallout shooting, but you've taken out VATS, which is like
It's
one of the
not
most
good.
fun things that the last few Fallout games have had. Like we said, the flying the ship doesn't feel good.
The space combat,
the
the
space
actual-
combat is dog shit.
combat
It's
is
dog shit.
horrible.
Again, something that,
my
again, I'm going to, there's so many No Man's Sky comparisons here. And I do feel like there is a certain element to which I feel like a combination of those two games is one of my favorite games of all
Right.
time.
Yep.
If you had gotten the feel of No Man's Sky with the writing and the depth you expect from a Bethesda game, that's the game of forever.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I'm talking about. And I was just so bitterly disappointed by it. Like, it genuinely felt like, for all the talk and for all the breath and all the money this game cost and all the things you were hearing about, the amount of dialogue that was written for this game and the amount of side questing that was well, crafted in advance, and this experience you were supposed to have, that it genuinely felt like they weren't even trying.
Yeah.
When you got there, like, some of the voice acting in this game is
So,
fucking
like-
abysmal.
Yeah.
I'm not fully coming over to your side yet. Don't worry. But some of it is really bad. Like, I think the one everybody has seen is the Irish doctor lady. Whereas, like, you couldn't have phoned somebody that's even been to Ireland.
Yeah.
And like, that's not me doing the whole, like, plastic
everyone
patties.
has
Like,
commented on that,
everybody
yeah.
has
Yeah.
commented on it. Like, it's not just us being sensitive about it.
To put a button on it, I've kind of said this about Starfield, and I'm not saying this in like the hyperbolic way. I mean this in the most literal sense of the phrase. I put about 10-ish hours in Starfield. I had no fun with that game at any point.
It's not fun.
Fighting, talking, exploring. I didn't have one interesting conversation. I didn't have one memorable fight where it's like, oh, that was cool. I did pine cover
But
and
were
I
you
did this.
guys like
None
me,
of
just
that.
waiting for that to happen?
Yes, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
where is the cool, weird character who's going to come up to me and give me a weird quest? And it's like, none of that. None of that.
The closest I had to anything resembling enjoyment, there was like a couple of cute moments.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's like the bit where you get like somebody aggressively calling you while you're in space to sell you insurance.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, there's some little, okay, that's a little bit funny. Or you get like the first main quest line you're pointed towards where you're trying to find these weird artifacts in space that have some sort of harmony with each other.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going on. You're like, oh, this is a little bit interesting. And you see all these kooky characters, but then you start to hang out with them and they're all just like they're so one note.
Do you know what Starfield is? It is it's the textbook definition of quantity over quality.
1,000%.
And I at no point was, and I don't really care for Bethesda games anyway, but I knew going in that this game was not going to be good because of how big that they were projecting that this game was going to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's just no fucking way that this game can be coherent enough and like tie together just on a sheer like technical perspective of like, regardless of how many years you've like spent putting this thing together, there's no management team that is like
capable
to put a coherent thing together that on a scale that big.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
I feel like I'm also going to, like, with the length of time it took and then my experience playing it and how big they were trying to make it, I feel like I'm going to turn into like Gersman talking about Duke Nukem Forever. It's like, what the fuck were they doing? Because I can't tell two planets apart. We're like, and there's the thing, and like, because of the like the random generation of No Man's Sky, like one thing, like if you have 3 planets in the system, all 3 of them are fucking mental compared to each other. Like there's no feeling of like, I have just like, if I like travel to another planet, another system, I travel so far away, I expect, like, I'm not expecting like that with the random generation where everything is going to be mental different, but Like a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like a little, like, especially when they're saying like we're not doing the random generation, everything is going to be so handcrafted.
Yeah.
So then it's like, why is everything like the grey brown warehouse?
Handcrafted in someone's lunch break.
Because if it is handcrafted and they have however much of it they've got to do, there's no fucking way that you can have like a packed.
You're trying to have your cake and eat it. It should be big or handcrafted, not both.
Well, that's the thing, is how can you make something big and still have it small? And I always give the example of modern open world games that try and do that and fail, and the Yakuza series. Yakuza is it's a tight sea. It's not very big, but down every alley in every corner, there's something. Okay, I've just stumbled into a fucking sim where I'm a club owner now, and I'm going to run a club, and like that's in one alley, and then you walk 2 alleys across, and then all of a sudden there's like a management sim for a baseball team or something.
I feel like Starfield is like the answer to the question: what is too big for a video game?
Can you imagine if they just had 10 planets in Starfield, and on those 10 planets they all had like different areas, big cities. I think about, so Jedi Survivor was the other big space game from this year. There were like 5 or 6 places to go in Jedi Survivor, and they all felt better than.
Do you know what I think of so much with this game? There was a great tweet. There was a great tweet where it was like, if you're looking for Bethesda to publish a game that is bright, colourful, fun to play, has space exploration, and everywhere feels different, I've got great news. The Outer Worlds came out 3 years ago.
If I could, so we've put the boots on Starfield here. If I could counter it and perhaps just to actually pick a winner on this, if I could make a case for Fight Forever, I will say about Starfield, I think most, if not all, of those Xbox Keighley Summer Game Fest things I watched on Twitch, and I remember watching most of the presentations for Starfield.
Yeah.
And I remember even in their spit shiniest, here's our vertical slice E3 trailer.
Todd Howard in his jacket.
Todd Howard coming out, Jeff Keighley coming out. Here we go. I remember sitting there watching it for 10 minutes. They did that 20-minute one. I would watch it and I went, and you know what? I think actually Garrett, who was watching it in the chat room with me, I remember he remarked, he said, they never said, what's the fun bit? And it was like something actually Jack said as well. It was all this many planets, this many hours of content, this many, and I would watch those.
It was like a KPI, like
it was everything. It was like almost everything that's wrong with AAA games. It was all scale, quantity, and I would watch. For this category,
it's the most game you'll play this year.
For it's not even not win most disappointing to me is that I would watch those trailers and I'd be like, it doesn't look good, man. It doesn't look fun at all. It's
such a contradiction in terms, because it's the most game of 2023, but there's fucking nothing in it.
And it's simultaneously the biggest and yet also most barren game of the year. But yeah, my one thing on this specific category for Starfield is that I really wasn't excited for it at all. I don't know if anyone really was.
I am 100% with you. And I'm not surprised that, like, I played that game for all of about 20 minutes, and I had 10 minutes where I went, well, this just feels like a bad PS3 over-the-shoulder shooter. And then I had 2 minutes of like, well, this space combat, I'm not fucking playing this any more than about 2 minutes. Uninstalled, thank you.
Should we approach our first vote?
Let's go for the vote.
Okay. So I'll start with in the order that we did it. So I started this round, so I'm going to go Starfield.
Me then? Fight Forever.
Final Fact. Oh no, sorry, Starfield.
I'm going to go Fight Forever. I'm shocked at 2 Starfields, really.
Yeah.
I think also key is because Mark, I'm not big on Bethesda soft either. They're not my thing.
The thing I didn't get into too much, I can Fight Forever, I guess, that is worth saying, because we did put the boots to that for quite a while, is that there was that window, I don't know if you remember, that like they started showing more and more of the game with about 2 months to go, maybe.
And you cooled your jets
that
on
was
it,
me going, I think this might be bad.
Yeah.
And there was almost it was weird. Day one, there was almost, I don't know if you got this, like when you play the first match, there was almost a relief. It was like, the feel is there.
Yeah.
So it was like a weird up down with that. Whereas like Starfield was, I'm not saying I expected to be the game of forever, but I had an expectation. And it just was a complete down.
If you think of pounds to actual like enjoyment of the game, like the pounds to enjoyment of the game of Starfield, you'll be paying millions more for your level of enjoyment than you
I didn't pay anything for it.
This is an interesting final too, because I would say that I think Fight Forever is the better game, of the two, but
You are grading on the steep.
But it's on the
That's
scale
the
of all
nature of the
scales
beast,
there.
isn't it?
One-legged man in an ass-kicking contest right now.
So, but then versus like Starfield is worse, but I expected worse, so I don't consider it disappointing. That's kind of where I'm at on it, you know.
Yeah.
So on the first category, we are going to the
listeners.
tiebreaker poll.
Yeah, okay.
And I'd like to say as well, thank you so much to everybody who did vote.
Thanks, friends.
We tied our best ever vote tally. So thank you very much for that. As is going to be
Eurovision.
as is going to become
Starfield Nippon.
yeah. I thought you should have done like the Sean Evans. That camera. Tell us what you
No,
got
I
going
should
on.
have been like
Yeah.
doing a rail of coke like underneath. And then
Yeah.
They got some wings.
So we're going to go straight to the poll. And once again, I haven't seen these polls. Like I have the polls on here, but this is the first time I've looked at the final polls. So I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, really interesting.
That's fucking
And
good.
we will for every topic, even if it doesn't go to a deadlock, we will read the listener poll out
We'll
afterwards.
say what you guys
Because
You
said.
need to know what the people think.
One of our favorite bits is always how off the reservation are we?
Sometimes a lot.
And I can't wait to see, like, straight away, are we like squabbling over games that finished 4th and 5th on their
Yeah,
list? I don't
possibly.
think it'll be the
Sonic
case here.
Superstars, let's go.
Okay.
I'm confident the people will go fight forever on this. I
Okay.
will say.
So, disappointment of the year. In first place.
What's third?
Oh,
good.
third?
Yeah, third, second,
Oh,
first.
for God's sake.
Come on.
Okay, fair enough.
Showmanship,
That's
please.
what you do every year.
In third place, well, you see, because we only usually count the games, of the two, which got the bigger. But okay, in third place on their poll, 16.7% Starfield.
There you go.
Oh, Christ.
okay.
In second place, this is also tied 16.7% GoldenEye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
The winner
Vindicated.
with a whopping 30% AW Fight
we
Forever.
go.
Wow.
The people know.
So
Okay.
I'll make the official announcement. Disappointment of the year 2023, AEW Fight Forever.
Also AEW, just in general.
Yeah. Tony Khan in the mud.
Yeah, you are mudded, sir.
Tony can't.
Final Fantasy was robbed.